All right, let's pick back up. Okay, so belief bias is something else that helps us make decisions and form judgments, but ultimately it's something that hurts our decision making because belief bias is where your beliefs distort your logic. So this is why there's like little point to argue with someone who has very strong beliefs. Tell your parents to there's no sense in getting in a Facebook comment fight with someone because your comment is not going to change their viewpoint that you read and upset you so greatly much. That's why it's so dumb why people fight on the internet. I don't understand why they even bother. But belief bias is where here's an example that's more in like your ballpark. You got a girl, you got a friend, girl, boy, whoever, who's dating somebody, and everyone knows that that person is cheating on them. Like everyone knows that your friend's getting cheated on, but they won't, your friend like doesn't see it because they're so in love with their significant other, and you try to give them proof, like you show them pictures of them with another person and they're like, oh, that's their cousin, or oh, that photo was taken years ago, or whatever they're saying, where even though you're presenting proof, like logical proof to them, they don't believe it. And that's because their beliefs are distorting their ability to understand logic. That's belief bias. And I know a relationship is something that's silly, but this happens all the time in politics. People will support a candidate, whoever that is. And I'm not like saying Republican or Democrat side, this is both. People will support a candidate because they will not take any kind of logical proof that that candidate's not a good person. Their beliefs about their particular party or about their religion, whatever it may be, are going to put blinders on for them, and they will not be able to use logic to see something that everyone else sees. Okay, so that's belief bias. Belief perseverance, there's a lot of things with the word belief here. Belief perseverance is where you cling to your beliefs in the face of contrary evidence. So this is like very similar to belief bias. It goes right along with each other. I would not make you decipher between the two on a test because that would be mean. But it's where you, even though you're presented with opposite information, once again, you still cling to your initial beliefs. So even though someone, like the cartoon here is very good, hopefully this would not be the case, but you have a judge, and a judge is saying that he's always happy to know that his final decision in a case always matches his first snap judgment he makes at the start of the case. That shouldn't be it. If you're a judge, yeah, you might have like a snap judgment at the very beginning of what you think is how the case is going to turn out, but you should be weighing the evidence along the way. And so if a judge, if his final judgment always matches what he initially thinks when he first hears the content of the case, that's not a good thing because the logic should ultimately change your opinion sometimes. Intuition is automatic feeling or thought. It's unconscious, and this is like motherly intuition or parents' intuition. It's where you have these automatic feelings and automatic thoughts that normally come from experience or knowledge. So that being said, don't always look away from intuition because intuition can be correct. This is someone who's worked with animals for like a long time, and they have the intuition capability to know whether a chick is a female chick or a male chick before even checking out the reproductive parts. So that's the why that photo matches that term. Framing. Framing is how you present an issue. For example, if the doctor comes to you and says, all right, I want to do this procedure on you and there's a 10% chance you're going to die. That would not be the smartest way to go about that. Instead of saying, hey, I want to do this procedure on you and there's a 10% chance you're going to die, you should say, I want to do this procedure and there's a 90% chance of survival. That sounds better. When you go to the grocery store all of the time, when you can find ground beef, holy moly, you can't find it today. But when you go and look at all of the ground beef, it always says 85% lean. It doesn't say 15% fat. If it's 85% lean, that means it's 15% fat. But they're going to frame it saying 85% lean because that sounds better than you going over and going, oh, there's 15% fat in this meat. The best example too for framing, all outlet malls. All outlet malls do this. Whether you're going to the Yellow Mall in Gaffney or you're going on 485 and you're hitting up those outlets, all outlet malls do this. And this is why they make so much money. When you go into whatever store, I don't know, American Eagle, that you're going into at those outlet malls, okay? They mark the price tag of an item up just so they can put a sign that says all shirts 40% off. You're really not getting a sale. They're getting the money that they want out of that, but they mark the price tag up to put it on sale. So the framing is that you're getting a deal when in actuality you're not. You're going to pay what they intended for you to pay on it. That's framing. Okay? All right. Language is very short. Moving on from cognition to language. We're going to hit just the high points of language because there's probably not going to be something that's stressed on the exam that you're going to take. So, language is all the things that we use in order to communicate. There are 3 building blocks for language, and the 3 building blocks mainly deal with spoken language, but they do apply to sign language as well. All right, so the first one are phonemes. There are about 40 English phonemes, and phonemes are the basic sounds of a language. When you learn another language, you have to learn that language's phonemes. And I know I talked about this with my 9th graders, and hopefully I talked about it with you guys too. But that's why, your ability to learn a language massively drops off as soon as you hit puberty. So that's why it's very stupid that we have foreign language in high school. If we honestly wanted you to be bilingual, it would be in elementary school. But also, it's hysterical that we want you to learn another set of phonemes in high school, because by that point, your mouth, your tongue, everything is totally formed. So for you guys to try to learn Mandarin Chinese at this age, you would sound like an American trying to speak Mandarin because you can't phonetically pronounce the words. And the reason you can't phonetically pronounce the words is because your mouth is already formed and done developing to pronounce English phonemes. And that's why I get really kind of upset and ticked off when people make fun of people from, specifically like Southeast Asian countries that come to the United States, and pronouncing English, it doesn't sound like the way a person who grew up speaking English would say it. And they're like, oh, they can't pronounce it. Yeah, of course they can't pronounce it because phonemes are already set in their mouth. They're done. Like they're learned a second language, but it's not going to sound phonetically the way that somebody would pronounce it if they grew up speaking it. So that's your set of basic sounds. Your morphemes are the smallest unit of language that carries a meaning. So like your prefix and your suffix, which prefix, P-R-E, has a prefix in it. P-R-E means before, so prefix is something that comes before a word. Suffix means it comes after. So the smallest unit of language that carries a meaning. And then grammar includes semantics and syntax. And like for examples of, oh, I love this cartoon. Let me get this straight. Do you want to build a gene factory or a gene factory? I get it. Okay. Adding ed means it happens in the past. That's semantics. Okay. Syntax is how we order our sentences and our words. So in English, I would say you're wearing a blue shirt. But if I were speaking Spanish, I would say shirt blue. Because the adjective comes after the noun. So in different languages, the syntax is reversed, which is why you guys always get caught when you're using Google Translate, because Google Translate doesn't always reorder those, and that's how you get caught. All right, so you get receptive language way before you get productive language. And if, my child would cooperate, who's napping right now, I would pull him in and make him exhibit number 1 on this video. Why can my 2.5-year-old do everything I tell them to do? Like if I give my son a command, he will do it. He understands to do it. If I say, go put this book on the bookshelf, he's going to carry it over and put it on the bookshelf. But he can't say that. He understands it, but he can't say it. As you develop in language, you get receptive language way before you get productive language. And this happens when you learn a second language. Like think about it. When you guys are sitting in a foreign language class, your teacher is talking and you're picking up on what they're saying in that foreign language. But then if you had to give up and stand up and give directions to the class, you wouldn't be able to do it. Even though you can understand it, you can't produce it. Okay. This is how you all went to learn a language. Babbling stage started about 4 months. Children who grow up with deaf parents will babble in sign language, which is really cool. A one-word stage is where, mommy, daddy, and they're picking up words to identify things. Two-word stage, around your second birthday, you're going to be able to say things like big doggy. My son's favorite was big dino because he loves seeing the dinosaurs at the show museum. And then telegraphic speech happens after your second birthday. As you're going through, it's going to be different for every child. Some children are very slow when it comes to language, and some are really fast. Doesn't make you smart, doesn't make you dumb. It just is what it is. Telegraphic speech is where you are starting to use 3 and 4 word sentences. Like look big doggy means look, there's a big dog I want you to look at. Okay. And then there's your what we just said. All right, there's 2 people you got to know for language. Skinner and Chomsky are their names. Skinner, you already know. This is the Skinner we talked about with his pigeons, who does operant conditioning. Skinner believed that language comes from operant conditioning. So like you said a word and your parents reinforced you with positive reinforcement that that was the correct word for that. And so because you got that positive reinforcement, you used it more. Imitating words that your parents say normally does give praise. And so everything then is conditioned and reinforced by your parents. So when you said bird and it was a bird, your parents got all excited and said, yes, that is a bird. And so you're more likely to then say bird again. That's Skinner's belief of language. His opposite on language developing theory is a guy named Noam Chomsky. Chomsky believes that language is innate. And I mean, he has good reason to believe that because, hello, we're speaking and, products of evolution. The language came from somewhere, so where did all of our languages come from? They had to be somehow innate. We had to be born with some kind of universal grammar. And his argument is language will naturally occur. Like no matter what, if we put, babies on an island and they somehow raised themselves and didn't die, that language would naturally occur with them. It may not sound like what you and I say, but there would be natural language. Critical period, we already talked about before. This is, it cuts off at puberty. And if it doesn't happen by puberty, it's not going to happen ever again. If a child is stunted from language during the critical period, they will never be able to have language after it. We didn't get to watch the Genie case. Maybe we'll get to watch it either at home or when we get back. But the Genie case, unfortunately, is about a child who was kept totally isolated from the world, tied to a potty chair all the way until she was 13 years old when she was discovered. And her parents never taught her to talk. And she was never able then to fully master a language once she was discovered and rescued from her abusive parents. So you either have to get it by critical period or it's gone forever. How language and thinking go together, there's just 2 things. I'm going to be done in 2 minutes. Worf is the other guy you got to know, Worf's hypothesis. And Worf's hypothesis is linguistic determinism. And he says that language makes your thinking pattern. So for example, if you're bilingual, and let's say I could speak English and Japanese, if I took a personality test in English and I took a personality test in Japanese, the results wouldn't match up because English is such an individual language and Japanese is more of a collectivist language that my actual results of my personality test would be different. So his point is that language leads you down a path to thinking because of the words that are available to you in that language, which is really cool because like there's a language that doesn't have any words for time because people don't abide by time. So how can you have a concept of time in a language that doesn't have any words for time? It's creepy to think about. And then the last thing is that we think in images. So remember our implicit memory that's stored back here in our cerebellum, and this allows you to do things like walk and ride a bike and drive a car and play a musical instrument, everything that's a procedural memory. You can think in images and it will actually help you. So there's a famous story of a guy who was arrested during the Chinese Revolution when it was the communist takeover, and he spent like 8 or 12 years in prison. You'd have to look in your book for the exact time. And the entire time he was in prison, he wasn't allowed to touch a piano, and he was a famous pianist. And when he was finally released from jail, he went on a big tour playing the piano. And even though he hadn't touched a piano in like a decade, he was able to play, everyone said, better than he had ever played in his life. And he said it's because every day in his cell, he rehearsed it in his mind. And so going through it in implicit images allowed him to maintain the skill of playing the piano, which is really cool. All right, so there's your 2 videos, 30 minutes of my instruction. Hopefully you liked it. Bye, guys.